I will share about a meeting that happened the weekend before last weekend in a community called Tempelhof here in southeast Germany. And I don't know if anybody is here on this call who doesn't know anything about the Kogi, who is kind of, it sounds interesting, but I have no clue. Is there anybody here?
I don't know anything about it.
And Iona, okay. Yeah, so I just ask because then I say a little bit before I, start with sharing what happened at the meeting or what I want to share about the meeting. Jane doesn't know much at all. Okay, so the Kogi basically is people from Colombia in the so-called they live in the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta in Colombia. And they are people who, together with 4 other, so they share a high plateau as their ancestral territory with 3 other people. I usually forget the name of them, so I wrote it down. So it's the Achuco, the Viva, and the Concuavo, and the Kogi, 4 tribes who live on this high plateau of the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta in Colombia. And they are, all of them are descendants of the Tairona people who used to live there as a, if you like, a high culture civilization before the Spanish came. And they are they were able to withdraw up into the higher layers of the mountains when the Spanish came. So they were able to keep their traditions, their way of living intact in full integrity until recently by staying out of touch with, what they call the younger brother. We are the younger brother. They are the older brother. And their culture is said to go back 4,000 years at least. And it's a very, very specific way of living that I hope I can share a bit about tonight. And they started to come out of their, hideaway, if you like, in the 70s for the first time when they asked, they invited, I don't know exactly, I kind of imagine how that happened, but for the first time, they let a foreigner into their territory in the 70s, and this was a British filmmaker called Alan Herrera, and he made a documentary about them that was kind of, broadcasted in the 70s and is available for free on YouTube. And I think many people watched it that time, or in the 80s. And it was basically them coming out with a message saying, our territory, our land is changing. We notice it's changing. And because what we see here, we know that it's changing everywhere because we are at the heart of the earth. We are taking care of the heart of the earth. That's how they see the territory where they live. And you have to stop what you're doing. That was their message to us. And obviously we didn't listen. With we, I mean, basically, you know who, like all the people who, are descendants of the post-industrialized modern people who keep evolving and creating certain big impacts on the earth at the moment. So the Kogi spoke up quite early, and then they kept coming back in touch with us, and the frequency and the reach of their interaction with us now increased continuously. So there's a lot of dialogue happening at the moment with different occasions. Which also makes it easier to understand where they are coming from, how they are actually thinking, and what their cosmology is about. Because now they know more about us and how we think and how we function, and we know more about them. So there's quite a change that happened already in the last 30 years. There was another film made by them this time, like they produced the script basically, or they made the script, wrote the script, and produced again by the same filmmaker, and it was called Aluna. Don't know if anybody saw that one, where they again tried in a different way to make us understand why we have to change what we are doing. And this time they used more symbolic, or not symbolic, like imagery with a golden thread that connects all the sacred sites in their territory. That's part of their inner understanding of how the web of life is, is interconnected. We still didn't listen, but they keep coming, like they keep engaging. It's incredibly, they know so well what they are doing, and very highly intelligent people, highly connected people. And so they, like a few years later, they asked German student at that time, still Lukas Buchholz, to write a book about them in German. And he was invited to spend several months with them, and he wrote a book which was actually quite successful and is now translated in several other languages. And like was the beginning of a few visits of the Kogi here in Germany. So they traveled, they went on a journey through the German-speaking countries 2002. And they also engage a lot with like an institution in France, where there's a lot of exchange between scientists and the Kogi to understand their way of engaging with the land and enabling the earth to regenerate. So there's a high interest in learning from them. And they are very interested in learning from us, but I think from a very different perspective. So the gathering at the community, the Tempelhof community, was initiated or was based on a school exchange that is happening between the Tempelhof community and a school of the Kogi, one of the schools where they already opened the door to, or no, not opened the door, they had to allow like our Western education, because the Colombian government forced them at some point, and then they kind of managed to regulate it and to understand, to what extent they can actually allow that, and to what extent they need to keep their students, their children out of that influence. So they have a very clear, they work on understanding what serves them and what doesn't. So how much they let in and what they really need to keep out. But it's a dynamic process, obviously, because sometimes they don't understand yet what the impact is, and then they learn in retrospect, and then they change it. But they have they have so many social processes that support them in really understanding what is a good or what is a bad influence in terms of maintaining their integrity. So it's incredible to listen to them. To watch that happen, actually. And so the school exchange was the first reason why they planned that visit this time. There was, and that's another information for those who don't know so much about the Kogi. The Kogi have spiritual guides, if you like. So spiritual leaders who they are called the Mamos, Mama in singular, and Saga is the female version. And these spiritual guides are trained from very early age, like when they are just born. They are actually, most of them are raised within the dark in a cave, so they don't see the sunlight for 9 years. They only receive white food, and during that time they are educated and trained by other elders, by other mamus, and obviously the children are also with their mother. But they are trained to be able to what they call to think or to perceive the thoughts of Aluna. And Aluna is, if you like, the mind of Earth, the womb mind of Earth. So it's a very deep connection with the creational processes of our planet, of our living conscious planet. And so they have a perception, a depth of perception that we simply don't have. And that's, I guess, also what makes them, like, what allows them to give certain information and messages that touch people very deeply. And they come from a place of really having an authority in regards to calling us back into alignment with the creational processes of life here on this planet. So the mamos have this role, and they also have the role of keeping track of all the stories over all the time that their culture exists. So they are like the whole purpose of this culture is to maintain. It's the opposite of what we do. We want to create new stuff, right? All the time. We want to evolve. We want to go somewhere else in the future. And for the Kogi, they only look back. And the whole purpose of their culture is to maintain what was. And what was is the origin, like the original state of creation. Everything was perfect then, and all their stories, the origin stories, all their wisdom and knowledge is actually like shaped towards enabling them as a collective body to stay on track with that, and to maintain that, to not feel like lose the path, to not lose the way of being in resonance with the original blueprint of creation within their territory. And that means they have such an incredibly knowledge and understanding within the territory of this complex web of life, and how everything is interconnected, and where everything has its place: plants, animals, rivers, mountains, spiritual beings. They usually talk about the spiritual fathers and mothers of certain species, plants or animals, also of certain lineage within their culture, within their people. So they have different lineages that everybody belongs to one of these lineages, and they track them back to the beginning of time. So it's an incredible consistency of integrity, if you like, and knowledge how to live in harmony with nature that this people embodies, still embodies, and lives, and can really be an example for. Although you can't just say, "Oh, let's live like the Kogis." It's totally impossible. And I will hopefully share a little bit more examples that I heard, and that kind of touched me, because it made me realize what it really means, what they do. And they have also messages for us. And the mama who was visiting this time was Mama Shibulata, and he also features in the film Aluna. I don't know if you've seen him. If you've seen the movie, then you've seen him. He is 85, I think, now, and you wouldn't tell. Seems quite, agile and young in spirit. So he at the beginning, right away, he said he has two important messages that he wants to give. And if you already encountered the Kogi, or had an opportunity to cross their path in some way, it's probably always the same messages in different contexts, right? But it also changes because their knowledge also changes, and what they receive. That's another information that's probably interesting. They use the mamos. They are not just knowledgeable about everything just because they are mamos. They consult an oracle. They are trained in working with water, with a bowl of water in which they drop pearls that produce bubbles, when they sink under the water. And they learn to read the bubbles to be able to talk to Aluna. So that's the main way how they talk to Aluna, how they receive the information of for everything. They consult on everything, they consult Aluna. Any decision they have to make in terms of their, their collective body, their be it education, be it some social structures, changes, whatever, they will consult the oracle. Going for, for a journey like that to Germany, how to engage with the younger brother, what to do next, they will always consult with Aluna. And that's the main tool to do that, not the only one. And they come up with really bright and good decisions. So it's like such a delight to see the simplicity, or to witness the simplicity, but also the clarity and I don't know, when you sit in front of them, you just sense the integrity of, like, the coherence within their whole being. Like, there's no inner chaos. They have an inner order. You can feel it. And that's also what they align with, like what they bring themselves into alignment with all the time, this order, this natural order of thinking, of being, how it was meant to be, right? So I made some notes to keep track. Let me just look at them for a moment. And please, if you have any questions or want to comment or add anything, just interrupt me. So one of the key messages, and you have to imagine, we were about 100 people in the sport hall of the school, of the community, sitting on the floor on chairs. And then the Kogi, it was one mama only with them this time, Mama Shibulata, and then 2 teachers and 2 students. So 2 children age 14 and 16, teenagers, were the delegation. And they all, stayed for another week in the school, participating in the school for another week before part of them left then to Sweden to be part of the I think it was only the Mama Shibulata who went to Sweden with the translator to meet with Sami elders and to go to like very remote, 2 very, very remote places of the sacred places of the Sami people there with a Sami elder, to reactivate, to be of support, to reactivate like a ritual that hasn't been performed there for 100 years. And the place wasn't visited, so it was kind of abandoned. They had to go there with a helicopter. Not sure, otherwise it would have taken them a week to get there, something like that. And so that was their mission. And so we were sitting in front of this group of people, and the Kogi not all of the Kogi speak Spanish. So especially the Mamo usually speak in their own original language, which is Kagaba. And so it was translated from Kabaga into Spanish, and then from Spanish into German. And when a Mamo speaks, they have a certain way of speaking, and they usually always start at the origin of everything. So not this time so much, but still they have a way of like speaking in a living, continuous way, following their inner thought processes. So it's not like, okay, what do I have to say? These and these points, tuck, 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 and then that's it. It's kind of a weaving. So it can take like 20, 30 minutes, right? Or an hour, or the Kogi meet every night in their sacred house, the men, to, work through whatever's happening, and to consult with the Mamo and with Aluna and whatever. So, and Lucas, who spent a lot of time with them, said, okay, that usually takes like 4 or 6 hours. and they are used to sit through. That's what they do. They just talk and listen. And so at times we had to just, sit and listen for 40 minutes to the Mamo speaking, and then the translation to Spanish, and then the translation to German. But there was so much happening, like on the non-cognitive level, that wasn't really an issue. There was so much transmitted anyway, with beyond the words. But so what he shared, what he said, is many things in that time. Also the students talked, and the teachers, but what Mama Shibulata shared with us, like the key messages, which are not new in a certain way, but I hope I can deepen the understanding of what it means. So what they keep saying is, you have to stop what you're doing, or you have to change what you're doing, and that means you have to think naturally and stop thinking artificially. And what they mean by that is not thinking in the terms of we might think about thinking. It's thinking is more a participation, as I got it. It's more like a participation in the creational process. So it's obviously also kind of the way how you imagine, how you order your thoughts, and how you feel with them, right? So it's the way to think is the way to create, and to think naturally. They say you can't think naturally in an artificial environment, and I actually don't know exactly what the word in Kogi language is, what they use, but the German translation was artificial. They probably just mean in environments that are not in resonance with the natural creative processes anymore, with how nature vibrates, how nature works, right? So we are off that. We are creating a separate world. And you can't think naturally in an environment that is artificial in their terms. That's what they say. So the only way to come back to natural thinking is to spend time in nature. And they were talking about 10 years. So they have a very different time scale and rhythm than we do. They also talk about 4 generations if you want to learn something new. It takes 4 generations for that to really, really land and really, really come into being, the new skill. So they think in terms of lineage and generations rather than individuals, because they are a collective body. They're a collective culture. They're not an individualistic culture as we are. And so natural thinking versus artificial thinking. And the only way to change the thinking of, if you really want to change our thinking, they say, yeah, you can change it possibly, but you can learn how to think with and as nature again, but it's very difficult to do that with an adult. So the only way to really change is to start within the womb. And they have a very high awareness of this time of, of these 9 months of a baby being in the womb of the mother. So they track everything, what the mother says, what she thinks, how she feels, what she eats, what do people think and say around her, where they are, what's happening, and all of that is tracked and also corrected if needed, and then given to the children, to the child when it's born at a certain stage, because it's part of who they are. So it's given back to them in a certain ritual ceremony, and during the time for them, that's like the base, like the main time where you can actually educate a human being. and everything else afterwards becomes more difficult. And it makes sense if you think in the depth of, of where they are going when they're thinking, because the structure of our being is shaped within this. The connection between spirit and matter is kind of created in this time. So the core patterning is happening in that time. So it's quite interesting how they understand, how deeply they understand these processes. And so another thing, there are a few more things around natural thinking and artificial thinking. One maybe that I share now, and then I go to the next point because I just am aware of time. And maybe I can go more into it if there's more interest later. But so what really struck me in terms of how they understand the embeddedness within within a living context, within a living culture, like context and culture like theirs. They say that their children don't play, and playing is actually not a good thing. And they say when like playing is the first step towards war. So, first time I heard it, I said, what? Wow. I mean, playing is like such a like a good thing for us, right? It's like how we cultivate our creativity, our imagination, and the freedom of being. And for them, it means playing is the first step towards creating self-sufficient system, like a self-sufficient reality. And that's where everything begins that is not in alignment with the creational original blueprint of Gaia, of how life works. So how they are with their children is they are always embedded within the processes of the daily life. So they get tasks from very early on, like when they're 3, they're already carrying the water, or they are already washing their younger siblings, and they don't need to do that good, right? They play while doing that. They create mess and everything, and that's fine. But they are given tasks, so it's part of they are part of the everyday life, of the community. They're not doing something out of it. They're not doing something separate of it. They're not creating their own world, if you like. So they are highly aware of why they're doing that. And for them, it's a matter of keeping peace. Found that incredibly interesting. Yeah. So another thing is what their message is obviously to, and that's mostly coming from the mammals, because they are so aware of the impact our actions have on the earth, and the way how we relate to the earth and to the places and nature. So they say that the earth has a natural order, and that an example for that is the indigenous trees. There's a reason why certain trees grow in a certain place, why certain animals live in a certain place. They could spot, we went also outside, and they could immediately say which tree wasn't indigenous, which tree didn't belong there. And to a group of foresters like a year ago, when they were shown like big patches of forest dying because of some bugs, you know, and the foresters wondered what they could do about it and asked the Kogi, and they said, yeah, no, that's simply the earth recreating, coming back to a natural order, because these trees don't belong here. Right? So there's no point of wanting to kind of help them. And so there is a natural order, a natural geometry where everything has its place. And there's a logic in keeping that and coming back to that. And the earth at the moment is in a big movement of recreating her order on a next stage, if you like. So it's something new also coming. But she's recreating her order, and they say, you know, there will be a lot of things coming that are not, that's not their words, but I guess we can all make it up, that are not very like supportive to the human species and to other species as well. And they are traveling the world as well at the moment to keep nourishing specific places within the earth body, to enable the earth to breathe again spiritually, right? To recreate these connections between places, and to also with her spiritual body, because they say the giving back to the earth kind of makes it how to say, makes the transition easier. So the, you know, the more we do, the less the earth will do in terms of creating her order, recreating her order. So there's good reason to find these places again in our environment, to grow our sensitivity towards them, and to be, you know, to nourish them, to be guardians in a certain way, you know, if we are able to. It's a bigger issue to look more deeply into, you know, how this is possible, how can this happen, you know, what is the knowledge and the capacity, I guess, that we have to bring back to us in order to do that. And that's another key message that they had, was that because the people in our group, some of them, like, you know, obviously said, like, yeah, how can we come back into natural thinking? We haven't got mamos here, right? We haven't got the spiritual guidance or anybody who can point us into that direction, and who has kind of spent 9 or 13 years at times in the dark to you know, to have that depth of connection. And Mamo Shibolato said that, yeah, no, you can. There will be mamos also in, you know, coming in your, within the younger, in the group of the younger brother, like within your body of peoples, if you like. Yeah. And even for them, there are prophecies who say that everything will be forgotten, and then the earth will take the first students, if you like, again to herself, and teach them, and give them everything they need to know in order to fulfill that function of preserving, you know, how life is meant to be organized within a territory. So that's what they have within their prophecies, I would say, that even they will forget everything in the near future. And this process, we all, I think, the group that came together there, also witnessed, right? The changes that are happening to them at the moment, and how the culture, the younger people in the Kogi nation, if you like, are also drawn more and more to having a smartphone. And you know, the more they get in touch with the Western education, the more the thinking changes. And although the Kogi are able to really maintain to a certain extent their integrity, it's still happening, you know, in one way or the other. But that's one thing what happened, that what I felt quite strongly, that you know, what they did was they empowered us. They said, like, no, don't look to us. We are not the ones who can do it for you here where you live. We are not the ones who have the knowledge of the territory where you live, because each territory has its very individual spiritual fathers and mothers and very individual instructions and very different organization and, you know, inner structure. So you have to engage to remember that. You have to go and look for it. You have to be the ones who, you know, rediscovers that. And for your territory. And that's different for us because we are usually not on the ancestral territory, right? Like they are for thousands of years. So we probably don't have an ancestral territory like where our, you know, ancestors lived for generations. So it's very different for us. But it might also take generations to do that. So we are the ones who are starting to plant the seeds, right? To create the awareness and to really consciously begin to open this path again, to remember and open that path again. And to give it to our children, to give it to the next generation, to enable them to remember. And they will more easily remember, you know, when we start walking in that direction. And then the generation afterwards will even more easily remember. So they, because they think in generations, not in individual people, they can really be very sure in terms of that's what will be happening. If we start, you know, if we engage, and if we dedicate ourselves to a certain extent to reconnect and to remember and to listen to the places where we live, so they can actually talk to us and help us to remember. And maybe I just stop here because now I have actually talked almost the whole time, and there are details like situations that I could share more about that, you know, might make it more explicit or more like alive. Some of the things I talked, but I shared, but I don't know if it's already enough or not. And maybe you have any comments or questions. Most of you have already disappeared behind your turned off videos. Yeah, give me some feedback, some reflection to know where
That's
you
brilliant, Ilona. It's been really inspiring to listen to it all and to be reminded of what I dipped into 30 years ago. Yeah, really appreciate you putting the time and effort into spreading it, you know, sharing it with us. And I hope the other people who were interested will actually watch the recording and, you know, so little by little it filters out. You're doing your part. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Right. Yeah.
After I read your post, I had never heard of them before, and I think I haven't done much else than looking at reading texts and watching documentaries and sending that to everyone. So you already had some kind of an effect of dissemination in the last days. And I feel extremely helpless, and I think that's what it seems that's also like something that happened in that room. Like where do I start? Do I just start in my own garden? Or what is my land? Like, is it, how big is my land? Like, I don't even have that kind of a home, except for like the 3,000 square meters I own. I would like to have a golden thread in my hand actually and know where to go, and then I could do that, but I have no idea. I haven't felt that useless in a long time.
Mm.
And like without ancestry, without a land that has a history, without and I think Europe has really been cut off from that. But I know that you do a lot of works in like a lot of healing work in the so where would you start? Like you, not the Kogi.
Same question, you know, was asked to Mamo Shibolata, and he said, "Oh, you start by sitting in nature, like spend time there, right? Like any, I guess, good when there's really like nature in her integrity around your house or nearby." You know, to keep sitting and spending time, what we all do when we start our rewilding journey or reconnecting with nature. You know, there's the sit spot practice, to just sit somewhere and get to know a place. And then you grow your sense of connection, you grow your sense of communication that doesn't happen through the, you know, information channel we are so used to being, you know, have active all the time. There are different channels. And then you more get a feeling of what is needed, you know, and then they're part of their culture, and that's also why what they keep highlighting is the nourishment of places, the paying back. And when you see anything, when you take from nature in their culture what is like without any, you know, it's like so part of their culture is they give back through like physical or energetic payment. And they call it, I think they translate it with payment. I'm not sure. I think it's probably a different word in their own language. And they have different substances they use, but it's like it can be anything. It can be giving like beauty, flowers, just a leaf or a stone. But it's your energy, your attitude, you know, that says thank you and or I'm sorry, that is received by the consciousness within the place, within nature, the beings that maintain it. That is part of the restoration that needs to happen so urgently on a big scale, but every bit that we do is part of that restoration. There are certain specific places, like for trees, for example, if you know, there are trees felled somewhere, for example, and used for building houses or, you know, whatever, or a mountain is you know, extracted by mining. For trees, you look for the grandfather or grandmother tree. And in our scientific understanding, that's the one that nourishes through its roots all the other trees in its surrounding, right? So we know already about it from our scientific understanding. They have other ways of finding these trees, right? But you go there and you offer your energetically, your thoughts, your warmth, your gratitude, can give, you know, flowers, stones. They propose even give them money, because that's what you hold so valuable, right, in your culture. so give some money, but it's more about the giving back of energy, basically, of a certain quality of energy. And I guess we can invent it. And beauty, creating art, is like a big part of how you can engage energetically with the place when you create beauty in it or for it or with it. That's all part of the restoring work, and can happen on a very small scale, right? I'm not really aware of the chat. Let me just look. There a few messages. Yeah. And I could say a bit more about your question, Monia, but I want to just see if there are other questions or other comments first. Anything you want to say? No?
I wanted to ask you, Ilona, so how has it impacted you spending time with them for your going forward?
Yeah, I'm getting darker and darker here. Just noticed that I only have a light behind me. That would be a good idea.
I know, me too.
I hope you can still see me. So it has impacted me in different ways. So I guess one big thing for me was this, what in the moment when it happened was a very profound empowerment from the Mamo to us. Also by saying there will be, you know, like Mamos in your culture emerging, and the direct learning from the earth, you know, will be happening and is happening. And I guess for me it was a moment of, yeah, it's already happening. It's like taking myself more seriously, like the experiences I had, and maybe for many of you who had experiences in nature and learning and understanding through this direct interaction, we haven't got a place to land in our culture with that so easily. We have to translate a lot. You know, there's not much resonance space, or we have to be in some sort of tradition or lineage that comes from another culture. So for me, it was a moment where a lot of what I've experienced suddenly landed. Like it was like in a way, if you like, validated, which is weird because, you know, why does that come from a mamo in Colombia? But it happened. For some reason it happened. And then there was a moment when I had such a strong impulse to start connecting people and invite into creating a network. And I was aware of that was actually coming from them. Like the creational thought process that they are engaging with, you know, works from such an inner depth that it's if you like, it's woven into the experience of the group. And then you act on these impulses. And so creating networks, supporting each other. Yeah, that's so key. And we know that anyway for any change, right? So what started was that there were a lot of people within these 100 people who started connecting, and created a network to keep in touch and to learn with each other, to exchange about the places that we are already aware of here in Germany. I'm very new to Germany again. I just came back. I don't know anything about Germany anymore, right? And there was a place that also came to me during that weekend that I went to last weekend. That is one of the big places in our German territory in terms of ancestral, how to say, it's, I think in earlier times for our ancestors, this would have been a place of the ancestors, like of the spirits, of the ancestral spirits, right? And it's still there. It's still there. And this really wants to be nourished. And it's a big one. It's a collective one. It's for the whole, you know, it's not just local, regional. So I guess for me, what it did was it started a process that I knew I was coming back for here to Germany, but I needed that encounter with the Kogi to get it ignited, or to know the next steps. That, I don't know if that answers your questions, Susanna, and many other things that happened with me during the time. It felt quite important to be there.
Thank you. Yes.
Mind to share which place it is, if it's of collective importance in Germany for the ancestors?
It's the Blautopf in Blaubeuren in the Swabian Alp. It's a big source spring, very big one, linked to a huge cave system in the chalk rocks, the Swabian Alp. So it's linked to water and caves.
I wonder if they said something about because if you're coming from a tribe, like purebred in a way, you know, and so many of us in Europe, even so more in the US and Australia, came from so many different strands. So is their point of reference always the place where birth was given to you? or what is their point of reference where they say that's the most important place for you to connect to nature?
I mean, connecting to nature, I guess you can do everywhere.
Yep.
I know they said to Lucas, was that when he asked about the place of birth, for them, you know, the land where the father comes from is more like the connection to, is where you would go to connect more deeply with the land. And the language of the mother is more the, you know, what you would turn to you know, to connect with your female, with the female part of the heritage, of the lineage. So the mother is more for them, like in the language, in the culture, in the relational, and the father is more the land. So if you if you look at your ancestors and they come from different countries, then you would follow the lineage of your father rather than of your mother to find the places of origin that are important for you, according to the Kogi. And but I'm not so sure, really. It's probably very different when you have more time speaking with Mamo, and he will come up with very different answers. You know, so don't take it for like truth and fixed in stone. For me personally, I can say that like the coming back to Germany, to the place where I was born, so not just to Germany, but really literally to the place where I grew up, this time, and I avoided it for a long time because I had a very difficult relationship with Germany, and especially with my childhood and the places of my childhood. But it was so important for me now to come back and to spend time there, and I'm still there, because it restored a connection that I wasn't aware I was missing. And that kind of brought me back into a relation with certain instructions that are given to your body, through the earth, through the place where you're born, through the mother's body, basically. So there is something that clicked in that made me more ready to I don't know, it felt like more ready to now find my like, no, it's not finding my place, but I'm more ready to do certain things, right, that I now feel called to do, that again is related to the land and, you know, and to Germany in that case. And for that, the reconnection with my place of birth was crucial. But that's also a very personal journey. So I'm, you know, I don't know if that is true for everybody.
Such an interesting discussion about sense of place and belonging. This is, for me, 3 days into coming back to a place where I lived for so long and raised my whole family after coming south from Mauritius, where being in nature was just so much part of my everyday. But now that I'm in a more urban situation, that connection with nature sings so strong for me that that 3.5 years I spent up there in Findhorn has reset me to an even deeper connection with nature. And as a painter, I loved your reference to appreciate the beauty, create from the beauty of nature, relate that way. And painting trees and being in the forest is a great happiness for me. And I was cheered. I mean, another participant said she never felt so helpless. And I understand that very well. But that creative connection with nature that you have with water is beautiful, and we can all do that.
Yeah.
And honor it like a goddess.
Yeah. Mm.
Hmm.
So true. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, you're so welcome. And
Mm.
I don't know, I guess it's time to close. There's not other, other things that want to be shared or question or comment.
You say a bit more about this giving back to the womb, in the womb, who gives back to what? Like you said, there's a ceremony at some point where it's given back, and I didn't quite understand who gives back what to where to
Yeah,
what the direction is.
yeah, and I that's probably something that would need to be asked again, and for more detailed and proper description. So I only can repeat what they very shortly or briefly shared about, when they were asked about education, and then they started talking about the time in the womb, right? Not about school. And so they have a very, very strong care about what they are thinking all their life. They have many processes of sharing what they are thinking, bringing order to their thoughts, and use their thoughts, the positive and the negative thoughts, also as part of their offerings to the earth. So they use the energy of the thoughts and put them into offerings and nourish the earth with it. And for them, it's a way of clearing their own thinking. So they do that all the time, and they do that with each other and with the mamo, and when in regards to the time in the womb, and what I refer to, the when it's given back to the child. So that has to do with, they collect, if you like, all the thoughts. So the mother reports to the mamo what she's thinking. I don't know if they do that once a week or every day, but so they maybe they just sit together at some point, and then they share with the mama what they have been thinking. What was in their mind during the time, during the last months, during the last 9 months before the birth, man and woman, and then whoever is in their environment, and what was it that the mother really loved eating during that time, right? Like, is it like the fruits that grow in the high mountains area, or is it like chips and and cola from the west, the Colombian people, right? Because that tells them a lot about the child, what the child wants to become. So they collect all of that, and the thoughts they collect in form of energy in some kind of material substance. Usually it's the cotton wool, and or threads, and at some point there's a ceremony, and I don't know exactly at what time. It's after the birth. I think it's probably similar to our baptism, some kind of initiation for the child very early on. When all of that is given to the child, all of what they collected, right? And it's part of saying, yeah, you are here now, right? And that's what happens during your first 9 months, basically. And that's an information that you and I that's where I'm a bit not precise enough and don't know enough about it, if they give it in, if they keep it, if it's a more ceremonial offering and then it's disappeared, I don't know. But they keep asking the child in the first 3 years, what do you want to become? And the children keep saying things, and sometimes very intelligent things, and so they have a certain way of finding out who this person is, who this soul is, and what role they want to play in their community. Part of it is what the mother did, if she was sleeping a lot or if she was working a lot, or all of that plays a role during the time of pregnancy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is quite special to listen to that with my daughter in the same meeting.
That's right. Yeah. Are you still there? Hi, Alina. Yeah, so is it time to close? What do you think? Or do you have more to say, to share? I guess it's time to close.
Mhm.
If you don't have any more questions or comments.
I'd just like to say thank you so much, Ilona, and it feels like a lot to digest. I feel like I have enough to digest just now, and I wonder if anything else emerges in terms of questions that we can come back to, and whether that evolves into another gathering or something. But it just feels like I feel like I've received a lot. Thank you very much.
Yeah, let's just play it by ear, right? If there's an impulse, connect and just see what happens.
Could you let us know what happens in, like, where you said there's a network starting, or
Yeah. For those in Germany in particular, although it's also UK and France are also playing a role in terms of certain places, like these deep water places, and but in terms of Germany, there will be certain. I don't know yet because it comes from the inside. So I know it will happen. I got like the information, the clarity that it will happen, but I don't know yet how and when.
yeah, it needs to happen in a new way, I guess, too. We can't just have like a WhatsApp group and then we'll meet and then we do a conference, and then that doesn't work anymore, does it?
No,
So whatever emerges, I
Yeah.
would be interested to know.
Keep you in the loop. And in that case, it's actually quite grounded because it's about going to certain places and connecting and making ourselves available for what's needed, to support them to realign, to reconnect. There's certain movements that are happening through the earth body at the moment, that ask us to be there for them. So whoever is called to be part of that and lives in Germany is very welcome. Also for those who listen to the recording. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for enabling me to share about it and to deepen my, understanding and going through it again. It's another way of learning to share it. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. I wish you good night.
Yeah, good night, everybody. And I will be sometime in Scotland in June. So I hope to see some of you again. And yeah, warm wishes.
Thank you so much. And
Lots
lots
of
of
love.
blessings and love to you all.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Wow.